didn't adjourn our previous meeting.
Does that mean you're still in exec?
All right, good evening, Springs Board. We're live and recording. You're good to go.
Great, thank you very much, LTV. I would like to call the meeting to order. It's 7:07. Julie, would you do roll call, please?
Sure. Barbara Dayton.
Here.
Tim Frazier.
Here.
Pat Brabant.
Here.
Eric Frederickson.
Here.
And Emma Field is absent.
Would you rise to the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you very much. Prior to this meeting, we were in another meeting where we were meeting with the PTA, and then we were in exec session where we were discussing hiring of our attorney. So at this time, we have a budget workshop planned for this evening. Excuse me?
Just want to do a moment of silence.
Yes. So anyway, this evening we are starting with a special meeting, but we are actually going to be starting this evening with a moment of silence. It's another heartbreaking situation has occurred in our country, in a school, and we would just like to take a moment to recognize that. And if we will have a moment of silence now, please. Thank you very much. We do have some good news this evening. That after a long search, we have found a new business official, and we are having this special meeting really so we can appoint him this evening. Deb, would you like to make the introduction?
So I'd like to introduce Stephen Guarini. He comes to us from the Hempstead School District, where he served as the treasurer. His references were stellar in that he's hardworking and diligent. He's really interested in learning everything there is to know about being a business official, and thought that Springs School would be the perfect place to excel and give back to the community. Mike helped me with the interview process, and this is who I bring before the board tonight for your consideration as the next business official for Springs School.
Right. Thank you very much, Deb. And we've had the pleasure of meeting Steve before, and we are very much looking forward to having him here. He's has a lot of great experience for us, and we will be trying a new model here with how our business official will be here. He's coming a bit further up island, so it'll be part remote, part here. But we think this is a great process. It's worked very well with Mike so far, with his not being here all the time. So we're very excited someone wanted to take us up on this offer. So thank you very much. Thank you. And we will be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby appoints Stephen Guarini as school business official effective May 1st, 2023 at a salary of $150,000 per year, prorated in the first year, plus benefits. Do I have a motion? Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great.
Congratulations, Stephen.
A couple of finance items you want to
Sure.
discuss, Mike?
All right, first finance item is the annual budget trustee vote for 2023/2024, which is slated for May 16th. I guess you want me to read the resolution?
Do we need to do these separately, or do we do them as?
I could think you do it. It's pretty standard, yeah. And then item B is the approval of the bus proposition for 2023/2024, which also will be at the annual budget and trustee vote, and that's here as well.
Okay.
So taxpayers will have to approve that.
That's,
Right.
yes, that's
And
going
then
to
we
be on the ballot.
And then what is C here? The approval of the legal notice?
Oh,
That's just-
we have to post a legal notice, and so this is the board approval that we can publish that in the newspaper.
Okay, great. Any questions at this time? Then do I have a motion to move finance items A through C to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Great, and now I would like to call to order our budget workshop number 4.
Thanks, Barbara. I want to thank Mike and Julie and everybody in the business office who really worked diligently to bring forth this budget workshop number 4 and remind the community that this budget was built from the ground up. We learned last year that this is the process moving forward, is to build the budget, not just roll the budget over. So that's what you have here before you tonight, is a budget that we believe is not our wants, but our needs. It does programs for children, everything's intact, as well as add some staff that we think is long overdue. And we are servicing currently over 700 children in the district, another 357 at the high school. That's a large number of students.
Oh, it worked.
It works. So again, a reminder of what Spring's school mission statement is. It's committed to providing a safe environment and rich educational experience for our students with an emphasis on academic, physical, social, and emotional growth. We will prepare our students to be lifelong learners, to respect cultural diversity, to embody positive character traits, and to be responsible, caring citizens. These are our proposed goals. So at some point in May or June, we will solidify our goals, have some new objectives for the 23-24 school year, increase social, emotional, behavioral, mental, and physical health opportunities for students and staff, improve governance and communication, engage in strategic planning for fiscal responsibilities and facilities, bring student achievement back to the pre-COVID levels.
Okay, next slide.
What's impacting our budget? Inflation, high school tuition, price of fuel for buses and heating, health insurance costs are up 15%, BOCES costs projected increase 3 to 5%, cost of cybersecurity protection and insurance, staffing, special education, custodial maintenance / grounds, and our new math curriculum, which is estimated at the lower end, because if we can't roll it out K to 8, we will at least, partially roll it out in the areas that we feel are important, because those costs are just skyrocketing for curriculum.
Next slide.
What we want to maintain is our robust pre-K educational program that meets New York State mandates, small class sizes in K to 5, not to exceed 25 students, staffing that supports New York State mandates and requirements, a commitment to instructional technology, including personnel, extracurricular programs, sports, band, chorus, opera, robotics. School safety. Tomorrow is a reminder that Homeland Security again will be here to assess our current school safety and security and make recommendations. I think it's very timely.
If we just clarify, okay, it is, I think some people are asking, it really is just they're looking at everything that we've done, and it's kind of a check and making recommendations if they see any shortcomings in our current safety.
Right. They've been throughout the island. They got derailed when Suffolk County had their cyber attack. So now they're getting back to the districts that they had not been to before.
This is something that's good for all schools to do and
Absolutely.
should do. Yeah.
Absolutely. They will not be in any kind of uniform. They might be just in a suit, and they might try to enter the building. We don't know what they're going to do, but we're
it's a little bit of a test too, then, I guess. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
So we'll see.
Called an inspection.
We want to maintain adequate custodial and maintenance staff. The board did receive a report from EnviroScience, Steve Harding. He was thrilled with what he saw. Many of the things that he asked for our staff to do is being done. He's very proud, and he says that they're proud also of what they've accomplished here. So fully staffed bus drivers and bus monitors that Advertisement is always up there. We have one driver in training, and he's a bus monitor currently. Permanent substitute teachers and teaching assistants. Again, thank you to the board for those permanent subs. There's nothing like knowing that you can report to work every day. Quality professional development and ongoing curriculum work. We've had our challenges with the lack of substitutes to do professional development during the school day, but with your support again, those extra half days have been very meaningful and beneficial to our staff. Comprehensive social and emotional programs and restorative practices. Just recently, we had Megan's Law come in again. Every time that they come in and run programs, you know, it sheds light on how important providing those workshops to our students are.
Next slide.
Staffing request for 23-24 school year. 0.4 additional elementary K-5 Spanish teacher for a complete FTE. When our home and careers person resigned, we split that position into 2 positions. Both those individuals are working 0.6, so we want to round out the 0.4 Spanish teacher. She'll be able to see our children K-5 once a week. 0.4 additional counselor. This can be funded through special ed money because it is a new position. The statistics are staggering. Just recently, 184% increase in the number of children under the age of 13 that have been hospitalized for mental illness. It's staggering. So I think that that's a good use, and that will make the business teacher go. She's certified as a school counselor as well as a business teacher. 2 special ed teachers returned to the consultant teacher model. Last year when we were asked to come in at the cap, that was one of the areas that we thought we could cut back on and share a special ed teacher between 2 classrooms. We realized that's not optimal for our students. And again, not knowing what the kindergarten makeup will be, I'm recommending that we return to the original model that was here at Spring School. And that will give us a special ed teacher in every grade and 2 in 8th grade. 1 additional custodian, mostly nights. If we can swing that person to Saturdays, that would be great because our facilities, our outdoors are getting a lot of use. 1 maintenance grounds person and 1 part-time bus driver. Currently in the budget, we have not been able to fill the full-time bus driver. So we rolled that one over until next year. So it's not a new position, it's already there. The other contingent position that's already there is a teacher that we didn't fill last year. So that's still in the budget. So the increase in FTEs is 5.3, with benefits approximate cost about $410,000.
Okay, next slide.
And this is where your reductions will be. The co-teaching model that was shared special ed teacher, we did put a teacher assistant shared in those grades. So 2 teacher assistants from the co-teaching model will be a reduction. And because we're recommending 3 sections for first grade, there are 3 sections of kindergarten this year. We're recommending 3 sections for kindergarten next year, 3 sections of first grade. There'll be 1 reduction of teacher assistant in first grade. I'm not worried here. There's several teacher assistants that, you know, are not certified, that are, you know, are working, you know, by the day. So I think we'll be fine there in that reduction.
Yeah, next slide.
And this is the 2 contingent positions I was talking about that were currently in this budget that I asked Mike just to make sure that they're still there in next year's budget. The contingent teacher and the 1 full-time bus driver.
Those are the kind of things that if they're not filled, then they roll over into fund balance at the end of the year.
Correct.
But they're there if we need them.
Yes.
Just with bus drivers, like now, East Hampton has a new bus garage down on borderline of Springs in East Hampton. You've driven by there, there's a big sign out
Yes.
there. Has that affected our bus drivers? We lost any bus drivers? So they staying where they're at?
No, at this time. They are recruiting hard.
Yes.
And I think the bus driver's contract is in impasse right now.
Yes.
So we got to work on that. All right, next slide. All right, this
Now
is
it's you.
this is the expense summary comparing last year to the proposal for this year. Line by line, the total wages and salaries, the benefits. You can see the increase is 476,000 for total wages and salaries, 630,000 in the benefits area. Tuition for the high school and special ed, that's not just East Hampton, but it's also Southampton. I think it also includes some of the residentials, but that's going to up by $803,000. BOCE services is $156,000. Our debt service payments have gone up by $124,000. Interfund transfers, we dropped that by $20,000. Textbooks are going up by $98,000. Software, roughly around $4,000. That's for software to help with the teaching in the classroom stuff. Equipment has virtually no change, about a $90 change. Contractual expenses are going up by $253,000, and supplies and materials increased by $35,000, giving you a total difference of $2,562,000 between last year and this coming year. The one thing I want to say about the employee benefits, I think in future years, right now, I've read a couple of things on the Social Security website, and there's a lot of talk going on there that they want to increase that rate by, right now it's a 12.4% combined rate between the employee and the employer. They want to increase it to 15%, and they want to do it with the maximums. So right now, this year, the maximum was $160,200. So after you earn $160,200, then you don't pay the FICA portion. So they're talking about trying to eliminate that as well. That increase in the percentage, though, could be a fairly sizable increase in money in our budget going forward, and that's a mandatory change that we're going to have to bear.
Mike, that's on a regular calendar year.
That's on a regular calendar year, so yes. Here's a chart of the tuition expenditures. I try to break this down to give you an idea how much of, for instance, in the regular ed for East Hampton, it's a $643,000 increase. How much of it is attributed just because the rate changed versus how much is attributed to the increased number of students that are attending? And you can see the breakdown there. The rate increase was $482 from last year to this year, and that's in the contract with East Hampton. So it results in a $151,432 increase, whereas the number of regular ed students went from 314 students to 334 students, resulting in a $491,912 increase. On the special ed students, it's stayed pretty flat at 10 each for each year. So as a result, the increase due to student enrollment is zero. However, the increase due to the rate that's contractual is $13,386.
So just to understand, Mike, going back to East Hampton, you're adding then the rate increase for the students that are already there, along with the increased rate and the increased number of students in the line below. Is that
Right,
correct?
I'm just trying to break out the total increase into the two different
Right.
main things that
Okay.
create
And
it.
so the total increase is then in the right-hand column.
Correct,
The 643 is the
Correct.
total increase for the high school.
right.
It not only costs more per student, but there are more students.
More students and and again, you see in special ed, it's just really the rate increase that's creating that increase in special ed students. When we go down to, let's see, the co-teaching model, the hybrid model as we call it, again, we're leaving the same number of students, 33 students in each. And the rate, I'm estimating at $1,287.69. And I believe before I got here, Robert had gotten in touch with East Hampton to get what they're budgeting for next year's rate, which is the $44,210.69. The way the contract is written with the hybrid rates, they're not scheduling that out. They're looking at it on a year-to-year basis, and they're letting us know ahead of time what they anticipate that rate is going to be for next year, which helps us for the budget purpose.
And this year we were helped with the gen ed side because we had overestimated the special ed number of children and it never hit to those levels. Without that overestimating, I don't know where we would have come up with almost $500,000 for the increased cost of regular tuition to East Hampton.
And I've put in there the numbers for Southampton. You can see 116,891 was last year's tuition rate. And the projected tuition rate from the state is, for this year, is 111,615, which is a decrease of $5,276 per student, resulting in a $10,552 reduction. So our total increase for the two public schools that we send students to is $688,673. There's a lot there, but I'm trying, like I said, I'm trying to break this down so that you can see what the impact is by the number of students versus these various rate changes.
And this is the actual number of students. This is not allowing for any extra students in the budget, say for at the high school, where we
Yeah.
still need to allow for, do we have more students come in and how many do?
There's no
we have
buffer at the moment.
There's no buffer
There's no
here.
buffer.
Uh,
There might be one or two buffers in the hybrid model and the special ed, but very few. Very, very, very few.
Is that the actual number of students that we have in the high school right now?
I believe it's 8 for self-contained.
Mhm.
I think it's 25 for co-teaching.
And then the regular,
334 regular, is that the
334, do we
actual?
actually have?
That's the actual number.
That's the
Yeah,
actual
it's okay,
number.
yeah.
What do we have this year as of?
All right, the next screen here is the calculation of the tax levy cap. And you can see 2022-23 year, we had a cap of 5.46%. And if you remember, our tax levy came up to that number. So we were right at 5.46%. 23-24 school year, our calculation is 2.14%. It went down. And as you saw, the debt service before just went up by a little bit. You can see it in the slides here, how last year we had an adjustment that reduced from the prior year by 525,000 on the debt service, and then it went up to 1,093,000. Well, again, this year we adjust down the tax levy for this year by the 1,093,000, but then we increase it by 1,187,000. So the difference is a smaller increase than what we had last year. And that difference is what creates the bigger gap on the 2% versus the maximum tax cap calculation. These are what they call the exclusions. So yeah, that's that. So it comes down to 2.14%
It's our tax
is our
cap.
tax cap.
Right.
So any tax levy that we have this year that exceeds 2.14% requires a majority, super majority vote. It's not a simple majority. I think it's 60% of the voters have to say yes. Here's our state aid breakdown, and basically overall, we're looking at a net increase of 3.36%, even though the state is saying it's more like 8%. But if you see down below, the grant, the special grant in aid for the universal pre-K, that has increased quite a bit and took up most of that 8.8%, I think it was, and is why that's coming down to the 3.36%. So this universal pre-K is accounted for in the special aid fund. So that's why I pull it out of these numbers, to give you a more realistic picture of what the direction of state aid is going to be. So we're only really looking at a 3.36% increase in state aid. This is right off of the runs from the executive budget. So, any questions on that?
Yeah, I did speak with Fred Thiel's office. There are about 3 new bills. He's trying to change the consensus data that is used for districts. Wealth is based on 23 years ago. He doesn't think that that will pass this year, but definitely proposed it. Even though the foundation aid is fully funded now, that again is based on very old numbers and is antiquated. So he says that the funding for public education has to be fixed. And I was quoted as, free and appropriate public education. I don't see it if we're not getting fully funded to educate children.
Yeah, state aid is based large part on your combined wealth ratio in the community. And the combined wealth ratio is made up of two components. One is your income wealth, which the state gets off of your tax returns. Whoever lives in, is a resident of Springs, they file a tax return, they put the school code in. So they are able to see what that is by household. And then the other ratio is the value of your properties. Because the value of our properties in the past, the value of properties was so high, the wealth portion of it, the income portion was below the state average. But combine the two together, we were way over the state average. And slowly the wealth ratio portion of the combined wealth, the income portion, is starting to approach, and it's actually finally exceeded the statewide average. So in effect, the combined, the property wealth is really what's killing the combined wealth ratio for Springs, which is why we get the lowest possible state aid number. It's 10% is the state aid ratio. Because there's schools out there that have very low wealth ratios, and they're getting 75% of their budget is paid for by their state aid.
Correct.
That number also affects the application to eligibility for a lot of grants too.
Correct. And we spoke about that too.
Next slide, total revenues. Here's the breakdown on the revenues. Every year we put in for the pilot. Last year it was 127,000. This year I've increased it a little bit to 157,000. Again, I communicate with the tax assessor's office at town. This pilot is only for the properties in Springs that are occupied by PSE&G, their lines, things like that. And there's a long-term type of an agreement with PSE&G to pay a payment in lieu of, if they assess the full value of the taxes, PSE&G, it would be a whole lot higher. PSE&G has a lawsuit in place right now fighting these pilots. They're trying to get them lower. So that's where we're at. I was getting a little nervous for this year because the pilot payment, the first half, we usually get in January. We only just got it this past week. So last year it was a little. We got the first payment in January, but it was the second payment PSE&G started dragging their feet on. So we're waiting to see what's going to happen on payment number 2, but we got a good chunk of it in payment number 1. We have interest. We never budget a lot in interest. We're not in the business of making money off of investments. We get money in. We try to keep it in safe investment accounts because we have to under New York State municipal finance laws. So I always budget about 15,000. Sometimes we get about 20, 25,000. This coming year, we may get closer to 50,000, which is a good thing because it gives us a surplus in revenues. I've calculated in here tuition revenue. I think we were talking about somebody from Sag Harbor coming to Springs.
Where we have one student right now.
So, and that's our non-resident tuition rate of 98,649.
That's special ed.
Special ed, yes. The miscellaneous, it includes some donations, insurance recoveries, just a bunch of different things. It gets accumulated. Last year we had 245,000. This year, based on a lot of the things, we're looking at probably about 437,000 in miscellaneous revenues. We're going to then this year, last year we used 1.4 million in appropriated fund balance. This year I pushed it to 2,060,000. And where does that appropriated fund balance number come from? Basically, we finish a year, we're going to finish this year, we would have a surplus. That surplus goes into appropriated fund balance, and that's the money we end up giving back next year. So even though it looks like we've got more money, we're budgeting more money than we really need, we're not keeping it all, we're giving it back to the taxpayer in the subsequent year. So keep in mind, if we end up cutting budgets down really to the bare bones and get everything that we didn't spend last year, take it out this year, you're going to have a double whammy next year when you don't have any fund balance to carry over. So I want just math, how the math works on that.
But that's a good point. Our fund balances, you're saying, that actually goes back to the taxpayer.
Goes-
That doesn't work.
Yeah, we maintain a 4% is the maximum we can keep in fund balance.
How we're allowed.
So this represents anything that comes in that's gonna be over 4%. So we've been able to keep that fund balance at 4%, so the surplus, dollar for dollar, has been able to go back to the taxpayers. So with all of that in place, I'm looking at a 5.31% tax levy increase. And again, to remind everybody, last year's tax increase was 5.46%, so this is actually less than last year. Even though it's still, because of the math, we still have to pierce the cap to get to that. So total state aid adds back and it's balances the budget. Next slide is a summary showing the proposed expense budget of $35,451,000 versus this last year's expense budget of $32,888,886, an increase of $2,562,000, which is a 7.79% increase and results in a tax levy increase of 5.31%. All right, and here are the important dates coming up. We do have another budget presentation to come up on April 4th, at which time, based on what you guys want us to give us some direction today, what you want us to do, leave it the same, see if you want to take out some things. We'll be able to assemble all that together, and I'll be able to do a better 5-year forecast of where that number puts us. I'll be able to then calculate the what the average tax increase is going to be on an average home in Springs, like I've done in the past.
Can you go back to the slide before that?
Slide before, Mike.
This one?
Yeah, so tell me, give me a sense of, okay, $2.5 million is a lot of money.
Mhm.
So in order to get just to the cap, not pierce the cap, to get to the cap, what are we talking about?
We would have to cut out about 1.9 million of that number.
That's good to know.
Out of that 1.9, what is based on contract insurance and all that?
That's what's killing us. A lot of the contractual, the salaries and wages, that kind of stuff, the health benefits, a lot of that stuff, it's going to be very difficult to get down to that number. It's
I'm
going
trying
to
to add the numbers up.
Back to the expense budget.
Yeah, I'm trying to add
summary.
them up. If we looked at just the basics, the high school tuition, which is unchangeable.
yeah,
Yeah.
here's
This is
the
slide.
actual
Yeah.
expense.
This is what you gotta look at.
So I'm just doing backwards math now.
It's going to be extremely hard. Inflation is just killing everything here.
Those first 5 things are non-negotiable,
Right, the first one, what's the total of that?
right?
And the rest of them.
And then there's contractual expenditures.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the first 5 things, after that, below that, you're looking at what? roughly $350,000 to $400,000 tops.
Well, less, because then it says contractual expenditures. Is that
Contractual
mandatory,
is-
or those are with like
Those are like when we hire outside contracts to come in and do
Gotcha,
things around the
So-
building, maintenance contracts, stuff like that.
That's BOCES. Those are BOCES services.
350 to 400 there, right?
BOCES is killing us.
Not as much as the tuition for the high school is. I have to tell you, I'm very concerned if there are no cushions built into the high school. We had 20 new people there this year, and we budgeted for 7 perhaps, and the only reason that we were okay is because of special ed. I got to tell you, I'm not comfortable with that. We could very easily get another 20 students in there, or 10 students. And then we're really having to cut stuff out.
Correct.
Go back to, question on wages and salaries, Mike, 176, that's not just the new hirees, that's.
No, that's just normal increases in salary for staffing. Like all of the collective bargaining agreements, for the most part, have some sort of a schedule of increases going out. So like the teachers, that's the bulk of your employees. Everybody moves up a step, and that's factored in here.
I'm just trying to call line by line. The benefits, that's just benefit health, that's just went up because of health insurance and all.
Health
that.
insurance went up by 15%, Social Security went up by a bigger jump than we anticipated.
That includes the 5.3 FTE though, right, too, the total wages and salaries? Or
Yes.
just- Okay.
It includes it,
Includes it, yes.
right, so you want to add that slide up there, I'm not gonna go back, I could actually mail, I didn't want to. you put the expenses it would cost for the 5.3 approach cost for the 5.3 position. But the reduction, you didn't put a number on that, just to reflect that even though we're increasing this, we're decreasing
Yeah,
this.
You're looking at 3 TAs,
TA salaries
not
are,
even,
figure 25,000 on a salary.
It's which TA it is. I mean, they're lower TAs at the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
we don't have any retirements yet.
Right, but it's the first, so it's the first year TAs, the second,
Right.
these senior TAs, right?
Correct.
So their salaries and benefits, you're looking, what's the number on that?
The lowest TAs are in the mid-20s.
Right, but what benefits?
And I always calculate the benefits. Yeah, the benefits typically are 40% of the salary.
The 3 TAs that would lose their job are the TAs that are not certified and their daily rate, so they're not getting benefits.
Okay, so that's nice to know that, just to understand that they're temporary, they're part-time TAs, they're not full-time employees, there's no benefits. There's no purpose, just they get paid by the day at the 135 a day. They're uncertified, correct?
Correct.
So.
So I don't see anybody who's currently getting benefits and is full-time losing their job for next year.
Replacing it, okay. We're not really losing your job, you're replacing that position with another position.
With teachers, right?
Replacing TA's position with teachers. Right.
So the good news is, filtering through this, we're 0.15% better than the cap number last year. But the challenge here is that we're somewhat over 3% over
This year's cap.
Mike projected this, if he could go back
Several years ago.
saying that this was the year we were gonna have to pierce the cap. He showed in one of the presentations that we left money on the table for about 3 years.
Yeah,
I know, because back, when COVID and all that, we were trying to be very mindful of our community and people's finances, and we were really cutting the budgets down lower than you advised us to,
right.
and so that was a board decision, we made that decision. And, there's no free lunch and you pay now or you pay later, so it's, now we're having to pay later for the stuff that we tried to help out with before.
This is a difficult budget to pull together and trying to keep it below last year's tax cap limit.
Right.
And that bonus, if you will, in the tax cap was really the capital project.
Yes.
The bond
The new bonds but now they've hit and they're gonna be leveled off now for the next 18 years or so.
That's an important distinction to make, though. You have a tax levy, but you also have these bond situations where your cap temporarily goes up. You don't need that 60% vote, but you're really operating under the, once that is gone.
Yeah.
So on one hand, we're showing a decrease, but.
All I can say is that we've been saying this to the community for the last 3 or 4 years. So it shouldn't be any surprise to the community that we're in this position right now.
Correct.
I don't see how you can really cut much out of this budget.
No, that's what I'm trying to get.
I know, again, we looked at it.
Yeah.
Usually we have a chance to say, okay, go back, Mike, and let's go, okay, let's say, okay, no textbooks this year. That's what's $98,000. I mean, that doesn't come close to helping out with 1.9 million.
Well, it's not even, right? It's 400,000, right? Because we can't.
You gotta find
We
one,
can't
did you say, Mike?
On this about 1.9 million.
1.9 million to get under the cap.
Right.
Yeah, 1.9 million is
So
under the cap.
So you could say, okay, this year we're not gonna buy any new textbooks. Well, that takes
Right.
$180,000 out of it, but that still doesn't get you very close to 1.9 million. And then equipment, again, what you're doing is you're really, there's not, I don't see, like Deb said, I don't see many wants in this. I see mostly needs. And the fact that we need it because the costs of everything's gone up dramatically. And the fact that right now we're in this position mathematically where we've been able to kind of ride the wave to this point. Now the wave's kind of gone.
Right.
And Mike will show you in his 5-year projections that it really looks like it's this year that you have to pierce, and that next year it
It
levels
starts
out.
going, yeah, it starts leveling, actually going down a little bit.
You have that presentation for us next week?
The next meeting I'll have.
They'll have
Yeah.
that presentation, yeah.
And I want to say too, the contractual expenditures, the big bulk of the increase there is the fuel oil. That's a contractual expenditure item. The
That's
fuel
your
for the buses, the propane, the heating oil, are all in that line.
If we're gonna be piercing the cap either way, I really think we should have a buffer in there for additional students at the high school. Because if we don't, then we are gonna be cutting stuff that's here, if there's no buffer for that.
I agree with you on that.
I don't wanna be cutting programs, I don't wanna be cutting any fun stuff for our kids. We're trying to build up, some programs. I think that we really need to have that in there. And again, if they don't come, then that goes back in the fund balance. If
Correct.
they do come, then at least we have a safety net.
But we do take the fund balance into consideration with how much can we tap into that prior to cutting actual programs that will affect people.
Yeah, you're gonna have, off the top, I can't remember the number, but it's 4% of, it's gonna be 4% of that 35 million. 20,
Well, then, but the
It's
issue with tapping
$1.4
into
million.
fund balances is that is what's giving you your financial stability and your credit worthiness.
Correct.
So, I mean, that's what people, we've done the bulk of our big borrowing with the reputation that we've had, but there is still always borrowing that's gonna have to be done, whether it's for TANs, whether it's for buses or whatever. And we don't want to be putting, we don't have to pay more interest because we dipped into our, what's making us look
Yeah,
financially.
Depleted the fund balance, yeah.
I mean, in an emergency, yeah, but this is, you plan so you don't have an emergency.
But how much would you do for that, or would you create a buffer completely separate of fund balance? So is there any allowance, like number of students that you could potentially use?
No, there's no allowance. We've been looking at stuff like that, seeing if we can't have like a reserve for
And then,
something like
yeah, we
that.
talked
There's
to Fred
nothing in the
Thiel
law
about
that
that.
allows that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that was something, did you talk to?
Yeah,
Fred Thiel on it?
we spoke
Yeah,
to
we
Fred
talked
Thiel
to
about
Fred.
it, and he did put legislation together, but he didn't get enough people to vote for it because there's not enough people in the same situation
lot of-
as us.
Yeah, because he's got to go with everybody in all of New York, and really, most of the school districts out here tuition their high school kids somewhere else.
So I think that's an important, I'm glad we're discussing it, because I think that's an important public awareness, that you get stuck with that, and it winds up affecting the kids later on, your budget later on, or your credit, or your ability to borrow later on.
Yeah.
So you're trying to be fiscally responsible with your buffer at the same time,
It's a balancing act.
Yeah.
And then you can only do 4% of the budget of holding.
That's the most you can keep.
I mean,
Yeah, it's
is-
the most
is
you're allowed to
on-
hold.
Yeah.
Who dictates to us how much money we can save? What the state of New York does.
Right. That's, now we have to look.
Well, we've been over 4% before, so,
Yes.
I mean, get your hand slapped.
Yeah, that's about it.
Right. What are you looking at, a capital reserve for next year? Do you think you'll have a reserve fund?
Well, in the capital and repair, we'll have some money, yes.
Right. What about reserve?
But in the general fund, I'm pushing for 2 million. But, we'll see. I'm hoping that by the next meeting as well,
When the
my
payoffs
plan
go.
is to have a fund balance estimate for you, so we have an idea what we're looking at the end of June. It would leave us how much we can move over.
Yeah, and Mike still has to look at the grants. And we have a couple, one grant I know comes due the end of September, so I want to see what the balance is there and see if some of the safety issues that Homeland Security might recommend or suggest we can get from there. And of course, bring that to the board and say, here's what we have left. Here are some of the wants, okay? And spend that grant money by the deadline.
Over the last few years, we've been lucky. We've had those big grants, the CARES Act, things like that. And we were then able to start reclassifying money out of the general fund to be paid for by the grant. So we get another flow of money from those grants. But what it does is it takes the expense out of the general fund, which has allowed us to create some big bubbles on the fund balance each year to year.
We've also been fiscally smart in purchasing one-time items versus
Yes.
purchasing staff with it and then having a gap. There are some districts that actually purchase staff using that money, and that money now is gone as of September, so they don't have it to use for their budget. we were really smart on how we spent that money.
And so all those staff members that are paid for out of those grants, grant goes away, so does the position. You know, now you're in not a good position for us as an employer, what to do with these people, so.
So if we added a buffer of 10 students into the high school, what would that do to our percentage?
On the gen ed side, right?
On the gen ed side.
Yeah, we have enough in special ed.
Okay.
That'd be another $240,000, right? No, $280,000.
210 would be 245, almost 246,000.
Right, and what would that do to our tax cap rate?
All right, I don't have my calculator with me.
Figure that out.
I mean, I'm quick.
It doesn't have to be on the spot, I just would like to know where.
Some of the stuff we have on there, we looked at, some of the new hires and all that, we can discuss that. You want to discuss it now, you want to discuss it later?
Oh, we need to discuss it now.
Okay, when I'm looking at the maintenance, when I'm not picking it out, maintenance, I think you had the Steve out, evaluate the two. And one of the recommendations was, buy the equipment to cut lawns and do all that. And I'm not in favor of that right now. I think we talked about the last board meeting, and the board meeting before that, this is the right time to do that. Because the numbers that we were shown were obscured, but when we figured it out, when we did the budget meeting, the board meeting, we looked at the numbers. And the numbers that were in the note that they sent us was different. But what I'm saying is, we pay for maintenance on the baseball field to bring the soil and all that, as part of a contract we have. The same thing with soil and also treating the sod situation out. We pay for service on that as it is. And that wasn't deducted from the cost we were trying to figure. But I think, some of the public made a good point. It does take it's a big lot out there for one man to do. To maintain that whole yard on a rainy day or a snowy day, or you get a week of rain.
Yeah,
or 2
I
weeks of
know,
rain.
I know that's what Kevin's idea was, to
Right.
do that big, but one man can't do it.
No,
Steve Harding and I have had numerous talks over this, and our feeling was that the person will be one half grounds maintenance to take care of the smaller stuff that Mahoney doesn't do. Because there's a lot of plantings out there that we never, we're gonna have to take care of it. And so that's the ground side of it, and the other half of the time, when it's a bad weather day, or when the winter time, the guy comes inside and works with Kevin and with Brocky on maintenance projects within the building.
Right. But this did talk about buying, getting a mower and stuff like that. I mean, I don't think we're in a position to be buying big equipment. We need to deal with our storage space and get all that figured out. And it's probably better off having somebody come in, and not have to maintain extra equipment and store it and stuff like that.
we could try, when we put out the bid next year for the lawn, and get a thing on maintaining the property as well. Let's get a bid on it.
We would have to, and
Right.
I would say, keep the money in a placeholder. If you're not gonna purchase staff and equipment with it, it's gonna go towards contract, because right now Mahoney's contract doesn't.
That's how we.
No, I'm not saying to cut that, I'm
Yeah.
just not trying to cut it, we would need to maintain the property.
Right, yeah.
But if necessary, do we need to get,
And then when you hire someone, then you're looking at benefits and stuff like that, which we're not paying to an outside contractor. So
Correct.
to me, I don't feel like we're in a position to do something like that yet.
it's not maintain, it's just observation of looking at.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff, I look at the numbers, some of the stuff we can't change. They are what they are, and I know Mike worked on it, I know Deb worked on it. You can't change certain numbers, They're there. Unless we start reducing
You're
staff.
piercing the cap just on the high school tuition alone.
Did you, I know last week the last movement, right? You did the involvement with the sections, the number of sections are staying the same as they were, last presentation.
Yeah, I'll have that for the April meeting. I can have that for the next meeting as well, but kindergarten, first grade, 3 sections. Second, third, fourth, fifth, all 4 sections. Sixth is 4 sections. Seventh and eighth are 3 sections.
Yeah,
Keeping that 10.
Average classroom between 18 and 23, right?
Yes.
No larger than 25.
The only one that could come out to be like 24 is when you take out the accelerated, science and math, it impacts the 8th grade.
How many classrooms are empty right now?
None.
So we have no way, we did something in another section where we're gonna put those students.
you have a flip. You're taking away one first grade class and you're
No, I'm
adding a
saying
fifth
we
grade class.
decided, it's like, we had an influx of students, I don't want to tell them where we are. We gotta add another section, I
You're
know,
talking about the high school, not here, though.
also here, parents.
Were you talking about the March enrollment?
No,
We-
I think what, at least from my perception of this, already we've increased the number of classrooms.
right,
They're just gonna have to absorb those kids. I mean,
That's what my question is.
nationally, a classroom size is around 29 to 32 students.
right, I know we.
I'd love to keep it down to 23, but in this environment right now, given the fact that you don't have the space to really put additional classrooms in, what you would try to do is you would, if you had, depending on where you got those kids, and in the past, it seems like they're spread out over all grade levels, not just specifically one. You just add them onto the classrooms that are there, and if some classrooms went over 23, then they go over 23.
Well, that's what I'm asking Deb.
Right.
You've got 25 as being what the board would like to see,
Right,
okay?
Well, under 25.
under 25, we'll look, we would,
Right, but I look back at some trend data, and you've always been between 32 and 34 sections. I've never seen you go over 34 sections total, and I didn't see anything, in the time that I've been here, I went back to 2016, anything below 32 sections.
Okay.
So you've always maintained that, and you've always struggled with space, even with the additional space. I mean, everybody who does reading and math and E&L support has their own space. At one point, you may have to, combine the spaces or work out schedules where people share rooms again. Right now, everybody has their own room.
right,
And if we increase the regular ed students at East Hampton by 10, it's going to generate 246,000 more in spending, meaning 246,000 more in tax. It's going to push on this screen the tax levy from 30,640 to 30,886, and the tax levy increase would go to 6.15%.
6.15.
but, so, next month, you're gonna have us the reserve funds that we have open, I think that point we can decide what we want to do.
April 4th.
April 4th, next
Yeah,
Next week.
Next week.
Oh, is it next week?
Yeah.
God, I'm thinking it's 2 weeks in
No, it's
between.
next week.
No, sorry,
Holy
Mike.
mackerel.
You'll be virtual, Mike.
Oh,
And
jeez.
Mike, you'll have the first taxpayer home increase.
That's where my intention was. But I thought it was 2 weeks. Yeah, I know I'm good, but I'm not that good. No, seriously, I'll do the best I can to get that
Julie's gonna
done.
chauffeur you home, and you're gonna do it as you drive.
That's
Can we just chain him to the desk?
Thinking was gonna happen.
I again have to thank this man for really uprooting his entire life. He spends every 2 weeks, loses 2 days out of the week
Yeah.
commuting to come here. He's not being compensated for that commute. And he spends weekends, like on a Sunday night till 1 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay, Steve now.
Steve starts May 1st, but yeah,
Too
Steve.
late for the kid helping me with this.
I just can't thank him enough because he turned his life on a dime for us, and I'm really
I'm
glad.
sure your staff gave him a lot of help with this, and,
Oh, absolutely.
this all.
And soccer season is starting up again.
Uh-oh.
Gotta be out there for the little guys.
No, it's a tough budget to look at, but the
It
reality,
is.
that's the reality.
All right, so I'll just leave pretty much this the way it is. I'll add the 10 students for the high school, recalculate everything, and just start rolling
And
it
is it 10
forward.
students? Is it 7 students? Do we see where it is when you figure
Let-
out the fund balance?
Let me look at the special ed numbers again, because if there is a cushion in the special ed numbers, then let's leave the special ed numbers because it's a higher rate,
Right, okay.
okay?
But when you look at having 20 students come in 1 year, and it was 10 students the year before that.
Yes,
We'd only budgeted for 7.
yes.
But an extra 20 students is like, that's a huge jump. And I think to not plan for that would not be good for our students here, because this is where it will come out of.
And the other factor that we don't know is we roll most of our grades over, saying, okay, there's 80 this year in 3rd grade, there's going to be 80 in 4th grade. I already contacted the high school. They can't tell me that all 81 12th graders will graduate. They're entitled to an education till they're 21. every student, not just a special needs student. So if there are students that just are not going to graduate, they're going to come back next year and they're going to be what they call super seniors. I can't
They
calculate
charge
that.
more for super seniors too. I said they charge.
They're gonna
more
charge
for
a premium.
That's the one section now.
But, that's the other thing that, I asked Sarah and she said she couldn't tell me right now how many of those super seniors there might be. But you need to know that they are entitled to the age of 21 or until they receive a high school diploma.
Well, Mike, thank you so much for doing this. And Julie, I know the business office has been,
I couldn't have done it without Julie's help and without
Crazy.
Kelly's help.
And I like the way we did this, because last year when we had the whole amount at the top and everybody got really alarmed and we had to, go around and try to cut this and that, I think this is, a good approach, even though we're getting to the late in the game to be working out some of the nuts and bolts. It seems like we're definitely on the right track with this, and it's just inevitable that.
Yeah, I think honestly, going forward, like next year, you may want to have 5 budget hearings right from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
And start them a little bit, we did start them,
We started early, we were on schedule.
yeah. But now this next one coming 1 week later, I think there needs to be at least 2 weeks in between.
Unless we're able to, because some of the early meetings were for looking at different program and different areas, and can we fit more in one evening so we don't have to have quite as many of those meetings?
Right.
Just organize that. But definitely, 5 meetings is certainly doable to put in the schedule.
But in this crucial time, you're probably looking for a little buffer between that 4th and 5th, I think, just to
Yes.
run the math.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what we were asking too, right?
Yep. Just gives me a little extra time to pull the numbers together.
Yeah. So in some of those explanation meetings, we could have a longer meeting and cover,
Correct.
3 or 4 areas instead of just 2, which would allow for more number crunching time at the
Yeah,
end.
yeah.
We learn something every year when we do this.
Yeah, but for next year, some of the classrooms a little bit bigger than the other classrooms.
Yeah.
The classroom side, I know we usually do it by grade level, but can we kind of proportion the rooms to the size of the classrooms? I know it's hard, because you mix up the 3rd graders and the 4th graders and 5th graders, but we have, an equity of classroom sizes, the number of students in the class.
It's definitely something that Christine has on her radar.
That's what happens, we have so many additions to the building. Every year, the classroom sizes, they're constructed at different sizes, right?
Yeah.
That square footage.
Okay. Any more questions at this time? I guess this is a workshop, and so LTV, is there anybody here in the audience or anybody from LTV calling in who has a question about the budget?
Barbara, we have a caller on the line.
Okay, put him through.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I thought you were gonna be someone
Hello?
else. I thought it was gonna be Mr. Buddha.
Hey, David.
Yes.
Can you hear me? This is Brittany Ballington. Sorry I couldn't be there in person tonight, and thanks Mike and Julie and Deb for putting together the presentation. It was really easy to go through and easy to understand, so appreciate all of your hard work. I wanted to just kind of press a little bit more around the EHHS contract. I think, we need to really do everything within our power to understand the limits of that contract before it sunsets in the 24-25 school year. It's totally hamstringing us when it comes to the budget. And, to all the board members, I appreciated your comments around that as well. And I know that you feel the same. I'm curious if there are limitations within the contract around, flexibility in the contract with address checks, and which entity is responsible for that. If EHHS can be responsible for that and then give us a quarterly invoice versus, us sending a student to Springs, perhaps they move to a different location, and then that student's tuition would really be the responsibility of Amagansett or Montauk, or maybe they move to the town, to the village of East Hampton. And then kind of the same thing with graduates. Would it be possible for us to receive a quarterly progress report on how students are doing in their senior year and what additional services they might need to help them graduate. And is there a way that we could look at facilitating that? For instance, if an additional service would cost an extra $5,000 in tuition, fantastic. We can take off the $25,000 that student would cost us for the following school year. And I know that like all of these things become quite nitty gritty, but I think it's worth it to kind of pull on that number. So just wanted to put that out there.
Thanks, Brittany. No, we definitely get into the nitty gritty with these students. We had Deb calling the high school at the beginning of this year, wanting to know attendance sooner rather than later, making sure every person is there. We check people all the time there because it's a big chunk of money for each student that's there. So this is a real focus. And maybe Deb, you want to speak a little more to that?
And one of the things we do is we send out letters randomly to check residency. So we put do not forward. It seems archaic, but it does work. The letters come back and then we can do checks. Just this week alone, our security guards did 2 checks. One of them is an 8th grader. And the other one was, I think, a 9th grader from the high school. Our bus drivers are very diligent. If they see a student sitting in a car waiting for a bus, especially in the winter months, in the rain and the hail, they report that that student was seen at the bus stop in a car, and we check that student's residency out. It gets harder with 11th and 12th graders who begin to drive because you don't know where they're coming from. But I know that the high school has even watched kids get off trains and know that they're coming from either Riverhead or Hampton Bays. What our parents need to know too is transportation is based on where you live. So we did find a parent who wasn't living in East Hampton, but was living in Springs, but wanted East Hampton to pick the kid up from Springs. And East Hampton said, oh no, you live in Springs. So it works in the opposite way as well. East Hampton will learn that a kid that they thought was theirs is really Amagansett or Springs.
Right.
So we do our due diligence. We rely on our community to let us know if they hear something, our bus drivers, and believe it or not, students are innocent for the most part, unless they've been told to really lie. They're forthcoming that I live in Riverhead or, I've moved, and then the high school lets us know that as well.
We've had in the past homeless kids that no longer live they're in temporary housing somewhere, and we have to still transport them back to Springs and educate them in Springs.
Right. No, that's a legal thing that we can't
Right.
do anything
We can't get around that.
Yeah, and I know that, so like at the beginning of this year, we checked every student who had not showed up for class and dropped them from the rolls. And
You're allowed to drop a student after 21 days. So September, we really try really hard before Beds Day, which is usually around October 5th or 6th, to make sure those kids are off the rolls, because what you don't want to do is inflate your state aid. You want to make sure that you've estimated the right number of students on that date. So this year was very tight because of the Jewish holidays. The 21 days ended up very close to that, but we were diligent. I would rather drop a kid than count them on state aid.
Now, to the other point that she made about getting progress reports for our high school students, it's always been difficult to get that information of finding out how our students are doing, and something we've spoken about for a long time.
We have no problem getting that.
Okay.
We get attendance records every time their grades come out, quarter or semester, and we get their grades. The principal really knows the students really well, so she's able to identify, oh wow, this is a blip on the screen. I wonder what's going on with this student. Or the attendance was an issue when that student was here. I'm not surprised to see the attendance as an issue
The other
there.
problem with throwing money at trying to get kids over the fence as far as graduation is there's no guarantee. You can, 5,000, 10,000, whatever extra money you throw into tutoring or whatever, there's no guarantee that student is going to graduate from high school, even with additional money. So it's really a tough decision to make. And it's an individual kind of thing that I think is important for the high school and their counseling staff to really work with those families with students who are in that position.
I know for a fact that education is really important for our students. We do not have the same issues that a lot of states have had with not finding kids post-COVID. Our kids all returned. Our kids all want an education. When we leave for vacations, we see an increase in their behaviors because they don't want to be off. Last day of school, there are tears, you know? We don't know
Yeah,
what their
I would
summer's
say
gonna
there's
look like.
very few kids that are in that boat that don't graduate, that come from this school.
Yeah, so, you know, I have to say, you know, education is important to our students here at Springs. They value it, they respect it. And we unfortunately have to pay for it. That they're our children.
Yes,
LTV, is there anybody else who was called in at this time?
We have no more callers.
Okay, thank you very much, and we got a,
Hi, Christine Wanda. I'm tired, I'll be very fast, sorry. Just to add on to the East Hampton tuition situation, one of the things that I'm sure the board is aware of, but maybe not the larger community, is when this was negotiated, they count your special education student as being a self-contained student if they are self-contained for one class or for 5 classes. They count your special education student as being a co-taught student if they're co-taught for 1 class or co-taught for 5 classes. So hopefully in the next agreement, when this is all negotiated with East Hampton, we can all kind of rally together to East Hampton and say, come on, like, give us a break on this part at least. And obviously they need the money to run their school, and I'm not trying to, you know, rob one place for the other, but that was one thing that really stood out to me as somebody who has taught mostly the self-contained students. And I look at saying, you know, 8 self-contained students, well, not the way that I would count. So just knowing that they are using sort of a different calculation for that, and maybe that's something that we can negotiate in the future and find some cost savings there.
okay, thank you very much, good point.
Casey Deline, I just got a couple questions. How are we billed for East Hampton High School tuition? On monthly or?
Monthly.
Monthly, yeah.
Monthly, okay.
Is it 2 years behind or 1 year?
Are we,
We're billed every month this
We're
year.
billed every month.
For the
the
current,
month
for the
Prior
current,
month,
yeah.
yes.
that the students have been there, et
Yes.
cetera? So if we are to find a student that's out of district, that's like a monthly
Oh,
thing that can be
yeah,
adjusted.
and they adjusted the following year.
Yeah.
The following month, they
Following month.
adjusted.
Right, that's, just wanted to clarify.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
How that works. And can I get clarification on the pilot number and the funding? What contributes to that number for us?
The pilot is payments in lieu of taxes, and it's a contract that PSE&G has through the town of East Hampton. East Hampton does the calculations, East Hampton does the billing, and we rarely get any concrete information from them. I should say rarely, we don't. I have to call them constantly to get an idea, what is this year's pilot gonna be? And they can't, like, right now, they can't tell me what next year's pilot is gonna be until they calculate it next year. So it's,
Okay, so that's a PSEG.
Yeah,
it's
and
PSE&G.
is it only PSEG, or is there
Yes.
any like water or any other
No.
utility
No,
that?
one of the charges in Springs.
Just like that property over, I don't know where it is over here, that is the solar farm.
Right.
That was taken off the tax rolls how many years ago? And the town allowed them permits to put a solar farm up to generate electricity. We see nothing from that. Nothing at all. But that's the town. The town has that, they own the property, they can lease it, they can earn revenue off it, the whole bit.
I wanted to mention something that I thought we should look into. Under my, as per my understanding, the CPF fund, just within the last year, has been given an allowance to give money to schools, upwards of 10% of their pool money. I think that's something we should look into. And under my understanding, that could be something we could access at spring school.
Okay,
Yeah, and I was told that the board was like the person to kind of look into that, but happy to help in any way or make connections. I'm still looking into exactly what that means and who that would be to talk to as far as.
That would be East Hampton.
right, yeah.
Is that in town?
Our town.
East Hampton town.
representatives, yeah.
Because I had asked the tax assessor about it as well, and they pointed me to the supervisor's office.
This might be the situation that somebody was talking about, because this happened in the Pine Barrens, and there was an issue in that preserved land, and there was something able to happen. We spoke to Fred Thiel about this, and
Mhm.
that particular thing does not work in our situation here, but if this is something newer, then we should.
That Fred Thiel
look
did
into
mention to me
Okay.
recently, so I think it is worth looking into for us.
Okay.
And again, happy to help, just making everyone aware, and I'm going to be
For some
looking into it
reason,
as well.
I kind of recall that the town of Southampton passed something
Yes.
special for that.
Right.
Town of East Hampton hasn't done the same.
Mrs. Drew brought this
Pressure on
up
them.
quite a bit too.
I believe
I was-
that may have happened in the last year.
Yeah, but that was the thing she was talking about, the
So,
Pine
yeah.
Barrens, it didn't work for us here, because we did talk about, but I think with that, thank you for mentioning that. We
Well,
should
no,
definitely try to
Yeah.
get to the bottom of what that is.
And I just haven't
Okay.
gone to a part yet.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you very much. Anybody else
I'm
here?
gonna send you a memo on it.
Or anybody else calling into LTV?
We have 0
Okay.
callers.
All right, thank you so much. So again, if we could just go to that last slide, just to give everybody a reminder of when our upcoming meetings are. We will see everybody back here next Tuesday.
It's next week.
Next week is the next one, and then the other ones are on there too, with the vote and stuff like
Mike,
that.
would
But that's okay,
would
we
it
can't
be
get there.
helpful
okay, we
to
got it.
change the 4th to the 11th? Does
It
that
would
give
be.
you enough,
That
but
would-
does that give you enough
We're on,
time?
we're on
That's
break.
break.
It's April break.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
why.
So-
And then
April break.
we have a regular meeting the following
Okay,
Tuesday.
that scraps that, Mike.
Yeah.
That's what we did, that's why I come in East.
That's, okay,
Okay, so we have a regular meeting on the 18th?
On the 18th, yeah.
you have to adopt the budget on the 18th.
Yeah, so we
We
have to.
Sorry,
We
Mike.
have to get this next meeting in.
Yep.
Sorry, Mike.
I was trying to help you out. I know it's tight.
Unless you want to change it from Tuesday to Thursday.
I mean, would having,
I mean,
could
would
we
another
change
couple
it to,
days
I was
change?
just looking later in the week, would having like 2 more days? If we
2 more
change-
days is always gonna be helpful, because
Okay.
the volume of number
With
of.
the 6th,
If we changed it
Do it
from.
to
that's
Thursday the
Holy
6th.
Thursday, right?
Oh, it
Yes,
is.
beginning of Passover.
Yep, there we go.
Yes.
Actually, in Pastor's Wednesday, right? Nope, it's Mike. It's Tuesday. Sorry.
No sleep for the
I can
weary.
drive and you can type.
Okay, so.
So Aaron out of bed, you use Aaron's bed.
Uh,
Well, good luck finding it.
All right, so here's the next, the dates for the budget
can't-
process. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Make the motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, LT.